Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today for a mixed media process. I'm going to be scrapping a photo of my daughter today in a 12 by 12 format using some Bow Bunny paper called Isabella. So what you see me doing on the screen right now is I'm using some gel matte medium, and I'm working that gel matte medium over a piece of 12 by 12 white cardstock just with a small brush. And I'm just going to be using that gel matte medium to adhere my patterned paper to that white cardstock. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I just want to give my cardstock a little bit of strength, because I'm going to be doing a variety of different medium on that, or using a bunch of different medium on that paper, and I just want to give the paper a little more sturdiness. So you can see now that I'm going to be adding that Bow Bunny Isabella paper to that white cardstock, and because that gel medium is on there, it's very sticky, and that cardstock is just going to adhere right to that background. So it's a nice way of sticking that down and just giving it almost like a double layer. And because the matte medium is on there, it's really stuck evenly across the whole entire back of the paper. So it's a little bit different than just using some tape runner or something like that, because this literally every little section of that paper is adhered to another piece. So it does really add a double sturdiness to that paper. And I'm just going to trim. You can see there's a little bit of white sticking out, but I just take it after and I trim that off using my cutter. So I'm going to also add some gesso, and I'm going to add some, I believe what I use is some Faber-Castell gesso, which is opaque. And the reason why I chose to use that gesso is because, first of all, I want to prime the paper because I'm going to be using a bunch of different products on it. And I did not really know what products I was going to use, as I often don't when I'm using mixed media, because I just love to just get in my craft room and play with stuff. And I often don't really know exactly what I'm going to do. So I had an idea, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I wanted to put some opaque on here just because I wanted to just dull that background a little bit. And you'll see what I do with it, just I don't want it to be white. I want it to be I just want to dull that background just a little bit. I don't want the gesso to be too bold. So I just take my baby wipe and I just move it around on the paper a little bit, which works really well. So you can see I just continue that process across the paper and continue to add that gesso. So this is beautiful, beautiful paper. I was in a local craft store that's about an hour away from me, and I try to get there every once in a while, and I was in there and they had this rack of new paper that was all vintage stuff. And I don't know if this Bow Bunny line is new or not. I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure that's the area of the store that I got it in. They had a whole bunch of different papers, and I did get a variety of papers too, because I'm going to do some mixed media journaling too. I got one of the Dilutions journals that I'm going to start to work in here right away too. So I just got some really, really neat papers. And so I look forward to sharing some layouts and some processes with you with those papers in the future. So I'm just going to dry this up and get this ready to add some different things to it. So actually, the way that the paper is sitting there right now, it's not in the proper justification. I actually have to turn it 180 degrees because those flowers that right now are on the right are actually meant to be on the left. So you'll see me, I think in the camera break here in the split in the video, I switch it around. So I'm just continuing to dry up that gesso, and I'm sorry, I probably should have edited this out, but anyways, I didn't, so bear with me. And it's really important to make sure that you get that base really dry, because I'm going to be adding some distress paints and some texture paste and a little bit of gelatos here and there and some distress ink and a variety of different things. And so it's really important always when you're using mixed media to dry between the different things that you add. Oh, and I'm also going to be using some archival ink and some stamps on here too. So I'm just waiting for that to be really, really dry before I add the next thing. Oh, and I also do some embossing on here. I do a lot of stuff on this layout. It was a lot of fun to create this. I'm actually going, I think what I'm going to do with this layout is I'm going to frame it. I think I'm going to mat it and frame it and put it up in my craft room. I'm slowly but surely going to be doing some changing in my craft room, and I want to, the rug in that room is a really vintage looking rug. We actually got it in a millinery, I don't know what the right word is for that, in Ireland when we built our house. It was my daughter's bedroom, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And so I don't want to change it out, even though I do crafts in there. So this will be really pretty in there. So I'm just taking some distress ink now, some distress paint from Tim Holtz. It's frayed burlap, and I'm just going around the edge of that paper, just in a random sort of square around the edges. And then you're going to see me kind of rub that around and move it around a little bit. And I'm using a baby wipe to do that. So because I've got the gesso on there as a primer, I don't have to worry about the paper being destroyed, although you will see the paper warp a little bit, and that's really, really hard to avoid when you're working on cardstock or patterned paper in this case. When you're working with patterned paper, it's not necessarily made for mixed media, and so it's thinner, right? And that's why you need to prime it in the first place. So it is actually going to warp a little bit in this process, but that's okay. It's fine. It's not that bad. So now I'm just adding some tarnished brass distress paint, and I really love how that looks, and I want this to be a really vintage kind of a look. So to the outer edges, I'm just continuing to add some layers of paint that just really adds some interest and some dimension to the background. It's unfortunate that you can't see that paper on the video very well, because it is really, really beautiful paper. And the other side of it's really pretty too, and you'll see the flip side of this Isabella paper as I'm working on this layout. And because I actually matte Bailey's photo, I bought 2 sheets of this paper. I wish I would have bought more, but I matte the photo on the other sheet of paper on the opposite side, on the B side of the paper. So just drying that once again, like I said before, making sure that those layers, every time you add a new layer, making sure that it's dry before you add the next thing. And always paying attention to which medium you're using and whether or not it's going to react with water and so on. Those are things that are really important. So the nice thing about adding, now I'm just adding some more of the gel medium, the matte gel medium. And the nice thing about having that on top is that it's not porous, and so you can put gelatos on there and they're going to move around. You can put the distress ink is going to move around nice on there, although distress ink is pretty forgiving. Then it's nice because it's like I said, it's not porous, and so whatever you put on there is going to sit on top of it. And that's a nice thing about gel medium. I like that. So now I'm just making sure that it's dry, and you have to dry it. You can't work on that wet. You don't want to, because it's sticky. So get that dried up, and then it kind of leaves quite a nice slick surface for you to keep working on. So just building layers. And that's the thing with mixed media, is it is just really one layer on top of another, and it's just the best of fun. I love working with the different mediums. So now, sorry, you saw my big hand there, switching my camera off because I just got some other materials and finished drying that and got ready to go here. So now I'm just taking my Tim Holtz tool there, and I'm adding some, I'm pretty sure it's vintage photo. I'm adding some vintage photo distress ink to the edges of that paper, just to add some dimension and to add some focus, really bring that edge into the focus and frame it in. And I'm just going to clean that up a little bit there. Hang on to that mat, girl. Just about blew it right off the table. So now you can see that the paper is really starting to come alive. And I'm going to use some Tim Holtz stamps here and some archival ink, which is waterproof. And this is a Ranger product. So it's really nice when you're using mixed media. It's a must when you're stamping to use ink that's waterproof. So this one is a little script stamp, and that one I got a little bit heavy with it. I should have stamped off onto some paper first. I usually do that. I'm not really sure why I did that. But anyway, I did. And I cover it up anyhow. It's not a big deal. But the thing is that this ink is permanent. So even though the paper is not porous, because of the gel medium, that is a permanent ink, and it doesn't really have an open time. So to go and try to wipe that off with my wipe, I wouldn't try to do that. I would just make a mess. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it, because remember, we're layering, so it's all good. It's going to end up getting covered up. You won't really even see it. So what I actually do, just to make sure, is I take a little bit of the distress paint and cover it a bit too. That is a Bow Bunny stamp, and I believe I showed you the packaging there. So it's just a really nice little mixed media stamp. It's perfect for this. And it kind of has it almost looks like a wire or something like that. And there was a few stamps in that set. You'll see them in future videos if you tune in again to watch more mixed media, because I'll use them lots and lots. They're very nice. So this is more of that Tim Holtz distress paint, and that's in the frayed burlap again. So I'm just going over that little spot, and then I put a little bit more of the tarnished brass distress paint over it as well, and I'm just going to work that around in different spots again. You can't really tell on the video, but the tarnished brass distress paint is beautiful, and it's so shiny. It just adds kind of like a little glow, a little brassy glow to the layout. So there's that picture of Bailey that I'm going to be working with, and it's in black and white, which is nice for this layout because it really does have sort of a very vintage look to it. So now I'm going to take that Harlequin Tim Holtz stencil, and I'm going to add some Ranger texture paste to a couple of corners. It's important for this one just to, like, I don't want it to get on there to get it on there perfectly. I just want it to be kind of patchy. So I'm just going to put it in those two little areas. I really like that stencil. It's one of my favorites. This is another Tim Holtz stamp. And when I get this onto my blog, I'll put the different names of the products and stuff, so you can check that out there. But I'm just putting some gold embossing powder on here now. So I just stamped with Versamark, and I put some gold embossing powder on there, and I'm going to heat that up. So I'm just trying to add a variety of different elements to the paper to make it look really interesting, to give it some dimension, to make different areas pop off the page so that it doesn't look flat. And here I'm just obviously heating up that embossing powder, and you'll see that gold is really, really pretty on this vintage layout. It does just really pop off of there. And I probably should have gotten my embossing tool out to heat this, because this Ranger heat tool, in my mind, really isn't meant for embossing so much. Like, it works, but it's not quite as fast. The nice thing is it probably doesn't warp the paper quite as easily as the other heat tool I have, because it does get pretty hot. I'm just going to add some pink gelatos to the edges, and working with gelatos on top of the gel medium is just lovely because it moves around. Like, you don't get that same ease of movement on cardstock even that just has gesso on it with the gelatos. So the gel medium is really nice to work with when you're putting some gelatos on top. So I just add that nice little glow of pink around there, because the one flower on the left is pink, and I want it to be feminine. It's of a girl. The layout's for a girl picture. So I want it to be I want to have a little bit of that pink and kind of sort of like that little bit of a Victorian feel to it. So I'm just adding a little bit of distress ink around the edges there too in Victorian velvet. That's the other side of that paper that I was talking about, and it's just so pretty. I decided that I'm going to use some vellum with this as well, which I love matting with vellum. I think it's just so soft and pretty. It just adds just a really nice layer to your photos. And I often will use vellum, especially with pictures of my daughter. I really like it. I just think it's somehow feminine or something to me. I don't know. I just like it. So I'm going to add some foam tape, and this is the Simon Says stamp foam tape, the Big Mama roll that I bought. And I was concerned about it not being thick, but it's actually perfect for photo layering in the sense that I just wanted it to pop a little bit, and that's exactly what I do here. So it works quite nicely. And then I'm going to take that other paper, that other side of the Isabella paper, and I'm going to put some more of the foam tape, because it is just a very thin layer of foam tape. I felt like I could put more layers of it, or at least it behind another layer of the photo mat. So I'm going to struggle with getting that backing off of there. That's one thing I don't like as much about this as compared to the 3M stuff. Anyway, I'm going to take my ruler again and do a little bit of tearing of the edges of that paper. Man, that's beautiful paper. It's so pretty. If you like doing kind of vintage looking layouts, this is nice stuff. So I'm just going to distress that a little bit. And the nice thing about it is it rips up with a little bit of a white edge. And then I'm going to take the distress ink, and I'm going to put a little bit more ink on those edges just to give it that distressed and vintage look a little bit as well. And I'm going to rough up the edges a little bit more, I think, off camera, because I think that I end up doing another break in the photo here right away. So you won't see me doing all of the distressing to the edges of that photograph, but you'll see what the end result is right away here. I take a little bit of time just to decide where I want to put that photo. So now you can see that I've added a few other things. I added some Jolie's Boutique, those little fleur-de-lis embellishments, and some Jen Hadfield title, Adore, and a little Jen Hadfield heart. Now I'm taking my clear Wink of Stella, and I just use my heart punch, and I'm going to use that as a backing for these other little hearts, which I cut out of the floral pieces on that other on the second sheet of this paper. So what I did was I just took my bone folder and I just pushed the paper into a mouse pad, into just a foam base, to curve the paper up a little bit. And I actually wet the paper a little bit, and I think you'll see me dry it, or maybe I already did. And I just use that the Wink of Stella heart just as a backing, just to give it a little bit more dimension and 3D appeal. And then I just put a little pearl on top of the heart as an embellishment on that heart piece. So I'm just trying to add a few little embellishments here and there in the layout, and I'm just popping it up with some foam, just to add a little bit of extra interest to the layout. So I'm just using a little bit of glossy accents to stick those hearts down, because there is a lot of medium on the paper, and you need to use a good adhesive to stick things down to that. So you can see all of the different layers and medium that I've added that just all together create a really interesting look. And now I'm just taking some of the black archival ink, and I'm going around and creating a really nice dark edge, just to frame the whole thing in, and just really to finish the edge off nicely. I had a lot of fun creating this, and I'm really looking forward to framing it. And I'm going to mat it and frame it and put it into my craft room on my wall. I think it'll look nice in there. I'm just going to add some Heidi Swap Color Shine in gold, and that's it for my layout. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And I've got lots more mixed media layouts planned, and some mixed media journaling to share with you. And I'm looking forward to getting back into my craft room and doing some more mixed media. So thank you so much for joining me today. It was awesome that you could stop by my channel and check out some more mixed media with me. Have an amazing day. Bye.